Welcome back to what's the name of this podcast again? Desiertalks. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. My name is Dimis. I am the owner of Desierto Media on Instagram, a photographer here in El Paso, and I'm joined once again by.
Caramelad. I go by Caramelad. To find me, you can go on at Kmoad on Instagram and also on TikTok. I now do have a TikTok, but it is private mostly because I do not post quite often on there as much as on Instagram. But I do work with Desierto quite a bit, so if you do want to see a lot of my work, check out his page.
Oh yeah, man! I love the energy already off the bat. I know I was talking to you right before we started recording. I want to bring this back. So bringing this back, we need to do a catch up. What have you been up to since the last time we recorded an episode? Which in YouTube time, it's probably gonna be like a week for people, but for us, it's like a few months. So what's been going on in your life since then?
My life has been a bit like up and down, on and off modeling, I will admit. But in modeling, like I have found a bit more of my footing in the sense of like understanding where I do fit in modeling because the fact that like I think one of the things that we have discussed the last time actually we were working is the fact that I kind of accepted where my niche is, which I think is accepting the fact that I fit more in commercial modeling given my measurements. The fact that I really just do like doing a lot more photo shoots and I do fit more in the fact that where I have a look is more in commercial styles, which I'm perfectly okay with doing compared to what I do see a lot in the industry where they push you to be a certain type of way, to be like a certain type of model, where I just feel like I was consistently being pushed to be that type of model, even though at the same time I feel like you can't force everyone to be the same type of model and expect people to be successful.
And when you say like same type of model, like what does that mean to you? Because that's an interesting phrase to kind of toss around there.
I think it's more just the fact that like every model has like her strengths and weaknesses,
Hmm.
and also same time I think also same time like every model does fit a different type of industry, but at
Right.
the same time one thing that I find especially within El Paso is the fact that because like the most known type of modeling is runway, um you kind of get pushed into like a certain type of box, and because everyone doesn't know like the different types of modeling and doesn't know like that you can go out of like just one type of box, you can sometimes find yourself being very hindered from having like different types of skills, and or if you do develop those skills it's not as like focused on as one skill. And so it can sometimes be a little bit of a tricky road to navigate, or it can be a different issue of the fact that like because the fact that you are focused so much on like the most famous type of modeling that like you will not really take into account like the different types of modeling that could like also help you along the way, which I think one thing that has been helpful to me is the fact that I have talked to like all different types of models in the industry and actually faced um who I am instead of like just staying within like the same like circle of what I'm supposed to be boxed in as,
Hmm.
which has been like super helpful to me because the fact that if you don't, you'll end up just kind of staying in like the same loop of not knowing how to be successful, which yeah, that can really be very frustrating whenever you're trying to figure out how to continue.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I feel with like any creative endeavor that anyone pursues, like you definitely want to grow, you want to find your people. But when you're going to something blind, for instance, or just kind of following, I guess, quote unquote, the path that you see other people follow, or just your general idea of what the path to success should be, it definitely can get kind of muddy on like emotionally am I where I should be? You know, you compare yourself to other people, a lot of stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious, following up on what you just said, was it difficult for you to kind of accept the path that you're on now, like how you feel about modeling now, or was it kind of a bumpy road trying to go from like, oh, well, this is what I want to do, but this is what I'm kind of better at, so I should probably do this? How was that for you?
It it was more of like kind of initially it was a little bit of like a little bit of a slap in the face, but it wasn't too much of a slap in the face for me because the fact that I already knew going in that I wasn't going to be the most conventional of models. Like I already knew I'm 5'4", my measurements aren't the best for like runway modeling. I know that I'm not 5'10", my measurements don't fit their standards from the get-go. Like I'm aware that unless I do shave down a lot, go in and like surgically change a lot of my measurements in some cases, I am not going to be what they want. And in some cases, I physically cannot change some of my measurements.
Mm-hmm.
It's physically impossible for me. So I already knew that. And on top of that, I came into the modeling industry at 21, which is already pretty old for the modeling industry if I was supposed to do runway. Runway, a lot of them come in very, very young, around like 15, 16, sometimes they go even younger. If you're tall and young, they really like that. So for me, I already knew that like there were a lot of odds going in.
Okay, so it was just pretty straight up then.
Yeah, it was pretty kind of, they were pretty straight up with me, like whenever I was like, whenever I actually went freelance, that was the first time that like they were actually honest with me about it. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, that's actually fair. And so it was only like a slight slap in the face for me, and so it was something that I had to like more struggle. I think it was more of like a struggle of like, okay, in the sense of like, okay, so where do I fit? Mm-hmm. Then? Because the fact that there is I am hearing there is an industry for me, but it's just where do I fit then? Because it wasn't that the fact that I was having the issue of like, okay, I don't have an industry. I don't have a place in this industry altogether. It's just I don't know where I fit. Because I was hearing from people, it's like, no, you have a place in this industry. It's just the fact that you don't hear about it as often. And so it wasn't until finally I talked to people who were like, not just like within that same circle of people who like are just telling you like the standards for like runway once again. And it's like, okay. They told me about parts, they told me about commercial, they told me about beauty, they told me about like all the different types where it's like, oh, okay. So that's where I can find my fit. And that's where I can start like actually finding where I can start working and start like actually seeing if I can start applying to like, if I do apply to like an agency, what types of agencies I can start applying to, and like how I can just and if I do like put my measurements on comp card, like if what I should do with it and so on and so forth, and do I actually have like any form of like reality in this industry? That is something that you have to really like face yourself with.
Wow, so I mean that sounds it sounds difficult, but it's good that you persevered in that way. My takeaway from that is I know, here in El Paso we have like Bazaar, we have I believe Regaza, if I'm not mistaken with that name there, as like the two like main modeling agencies here in El Paso that I always hear, other models talk about that they're a part of. It kind of comes off, I'm gonna say interesting here. Interesting is gonna be my cover word whenever I don't want to say anything like too controversial, I guess. But
yeah.
They lure people in with the promise of like, we're going to show you how to do runway, we're going to show you how to do the walk, we're going to show you how to do the poses. But behind the scenes, obviously, they're looking for this specific type of person if they're going to be the ones to succeed, to move forward. So it just kind of comes off disingenuous to me in that regard. But like I said, it's good hearing that you had those experiences. Yes, they weren't all like ups, of course, right? But you have like, made your own mark, and seeing your account and everything that you've been posting lately, besides just our own photo shoots, it's really awesome seeing you come into like your own. And I'm looking at our information here. It's actually been 1 year, like exactly, since we last had like this little podcast episode. And so
Yeah.
I just want to say real quick that for me, my thoughts haven't really changed on what we talked about last time. I still think that, if there's gonna be, let's call it a cool kids club, when it comes to like a lot of these modeling agencies being like, oh well, you need to be like this and this and this. Obviously, not everyone's gonna fit into that category. So I still believe, my thoughts haven't changed, right? That you yourself as the individual, you have to kind of just carve your own niche out. You got to find your own place, get your own communities going, stuff like that. So it's cool seeing you do that. And one thing that I want to bring up is you mentioned a lot about like your measurements, and how you were like talking how, I understand that I'm not what they're looking for, but I'm comfortable with what I'm doing here myself. I want to highlight one shoot that you did recently. I believe it was with G Photography here in El Paso,
Yeah.
which was a pool shoot, you know? And I could tell
Yeah.
that you really enjoyed that photo shoot because you posted so many pictures from it. What was that like? What is it like for you to open yourself up to doing photo shoots that show a little bit more skin, show a little bit more of you as a person? What is that like?
I mean, like, I think for me, I have a very interesting opinion. I feel like a lot of models actually have a very interesting opinion about their bodies, mostly because the fact that, like, for us, we kind of, a lot of us get very used to just like showing our bodies fairly frequently, just normally, whenever you're just around other models or just in front of designers or photographers so frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways I came into the industry actually early on was like doing a lot more lingerie. Understood these days I haven't done lingerie or like boudoir, or haven't done like as much stuff like that in a long time. But at the same time, like opening up my body like that has always been a bit more comfortable for me in the form of like bikini, mostly because of the fact that like I feel like bikini shoots or like showing my body like that is not really something that should be like covered up. But in the case of like measurements, I think whenever it comes to measurements, all models have like that kind of like thought in the back of their mind, because the fact that like that is something you have to be super strict about, because no matter what, like one thing that they tell you as a model is you always have to be on. And it's one of the things that like even if you are like in the most comfortable side of the industry, like there is a certain thing that you always have to like be a certain form of ready to be in front of like the camera, and like be able to like show, at least you want to show like the best side of yourself, at least, because the fact that you want to make sure that if you're like posting a picture or like posting a video or like hell even being on a podcast, like you are showing the best version of yourself. Understood, like I'm trying to be as honest as I am right now on this podcast, but you do want, whenever it comes to like those kinds of stuff in front of the camera, you do want to have like show the version of yourself that does look good, and you do want to make sure that it does have this idea of being pretty no matter what, even if it comes at a point of sometimes feeling a little bit like, I will say, restrictive, because the fact that like you have to be very militant about like how much you keep up with it, depending on what type of model you are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there definitely comes like how can I say this? I guess the word that I'm looking for is like regime. Like if you're gonna be a model, obviously, like I imagine you'd be a little bit more strict with yourself, a little bit more disciplined.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like you have to. There is like a certain amount of maintenance that A lot of people don't really take into account where like understood some people might see as like, oh, it's pampering or taking care of yourself. And it's like yes and no. Like in some cases it is part of the job where you have to like make sure that you are keeping up with your workouts, your diet plans, you are making sure that like your hair is in place, your makeup's in place. Understood as you go up and like start getting paid more, certain shoots will like cover your hair and makeup. But even then, like you, if you're doing parts modeling, you have to make sure that like you, depending on what type of part you're modeling, if you're doing hands and feet, like you have to do manicures and pedicures depending on what the person is asking you for. So it's like stuff like that where it's like you have to really, there is a certain cost of maintenance to the entire industry that you kind of learn as you go along the way. Understood, some people know it from the beginning, some people learn it later on.
Going right into it, basically, you already had that mental note in your mind being like, okay, like, this is what I want to do. I want to do modeling. I might have to do like more risque shoots. Like you were already fine with your body going into modeling, or was it kind of a learning curve where you had to kind of learn to love yourself more because of wanting to do modeling?
I kind of like, I will admit, I had to learn to like be okay with showing my body a bit more. Because it wasn't that I wasn't okay with like showing certain parts of my body. Like I did wear a bit more risque clothes, but at the same time I wasn't like wearing more doing boudoir or like doing like lingerie. So like that was one of the things I had to learn, but at the same time, like once I got over that hump, like after like my first photo shoot, I was like, okay, this is what we're doing.
So immediately
like,
just kind of like locking in.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we're going to start doing this.
Well, all right. Hey, you know what? That's awesome. You know, I feel like a lot of other people have a harder time getting used to something like that. You know, I know for me, in my regard, I've never like been one to be like straight up like, hey, like you're a new model. I've never shot with you before. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely something that you have to ease into in the photography world. You know, unless I don't know, you're like rushing to get canceled or something like that, right? But in your case, again, it's just kind of interesting hearing how right away you immediately locked in. You're like, okay, this is what we're doing. Fine, whatever. I'm here. I know in my instance, you know, speaking from like personal experience here, like middle school, junior, freshman year, like I was super insecure about myself. It wasn't until, you know, I joined the running team cross country in senior year that I truly like learned to love myself, you know, and like gain that confidence that I needed. So you having it right away is definitely super, what's the word? Admirable. There we go. That's a fancy sounding word right there.
Oh no, I definitely like didn't learn to like love myself in a sense, like but at the same time, like for like the thing of like boudoir, like I had learned to love myself like before I entered modeling, which was super helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh because the fact that like I think I kind of had to, which is actually probably one of the most helpful things to me that has helped me through modeling as well. Because the fact that modeling, I think, is probably one of the things that will make you feel the most confident, but also the most insecure at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the fact, yeah, because you are pitted against some very, very beautiful women, but also you are made to feel very, very beautiful at the same time. And if you do not have, like, a good sense of self from the get-go and like a good sense of like self-esteem and like love for yourself from the get-go, that can like break you very, very easily and can get to your head very, very easily. And I see it like a lot, especially within like a lot of younger models where like, and especially with like a lot of casting directors, they, for a lot of like a lot more insecure models, they will like prey on that to like make sure that they do what they say. It can be very, very rigorous. So I just really want So I was very grateful that I learned to love myself ahead of time.
Hmm.
But it was one of those things where uh, doing lingerie and boudoir, it was more of I just accepted that that's what I was doing, mostly because of the fact that I was like, you know what, let's do it. But also at the same time, it also I also kind of did it as a way of being like, okay, let's figure out who the creeps are.
So just kind of like rushing in there, trying to see like who is safe to
Yeah,
work with, who isn't.
yeah,
Wow, that's that's very ballsy for sure. I know a lot of models what they choose to do is reach out to other models and ask around like, hey, who have you worked with? Who have you heard stuff from? So you just kind of like braving it like that is it's kind of crazy, not gonna lie. But one thing that you said that really stood out to me was you mentioned that some casting directors prey on insecure models. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Like, have you ever seen that firsthand? And if so, like, where was that at? Like, what do you remember?
I haven't seen it a lot firsthand, but at the same time, I've definitely heard it from like a lot of like uh my younger model friends, where it's like they'll tell them like offhand like, oh, you need to like shape up, or you need to like, or like they'll definitely know whenever someone's like a little bit more insecure and stuff like that, and so they'll start like making like small little it'll start as like small little comments, but like whenever they're in castings or like at the show, they'll start like nipping or like doing small like pinching and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
And it's yeah. Yeah, no, it's like it's but it's one of those things that like you hear quite often where a lot of them will do that where they'll say like, "Oh yeah, no, you need to lose weight even if a girl is like super skinny."
Mm-hmm.
Eh, and or like your hair needs to be this way, or it needs to be, or your, or you need to cut cut you pluck your eyebrows this way. Like I don't know like the exact specifics of it because I've never seen it like firsthand because I'm not in those scenes because I'm in a bit more relaxed of a scene, but like I hear a lot from like a lot of people who are in those scenes where it's like there will be a lot of casting directors who will like prey upon those a lot more insecure models just to like keep them in a lot of those like scenarios of like, and so it's a little bit scary and it can be a little bit of a hindrance, and if you do not have that confidence from the get-go, it can cause a lot of problems where you will see a lot of girls do some things to continue uh, being called, if the best way I can say, like so that they don't get like called out again.
Right, like they kind of take it to heart. They do whatever they can to kind
Yeah,
of fix that, even if that's the risk of their own like mental and emotional health. You know?
yeah, essentially.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a tough world out there, but I'm kind of glad to hear that you're relaxed, like how you said, like you're in your own separate part of this modeling world. Because I feel like El Paso, it's definitely growing as a city, much more so than last year for sure. And it's kind of not a wake up call to me. I guess in a way it is, where I've already been doing photography for about 5, 6 years going on, and I hear different names pop up nowadays of like different photographers and models that I not even heard of or even had the chance to meet. So it's one of those like, man, like it's a whole different world now than when I first came in, because when I first stepped onto the scene, I thought I was carving out my little niche, getting my own little group of people together. But and I'm kind of curious, like it's been a year since we last recorded this. Besides our shoot that we did last week, like who else have you been working with recently that has stood out to you?
I think one of the more recent shoots that stood out to me was probably Arizpe photography. I did I think that's the name. I'm checking right now. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. It's good to check.
Yeah, it's called. His name is Mario Arizpe. He has been in the industry for a while. I did a shoot with him for the El Paso Fair. He stood out because of the fact that like is he's very cool in the sense that he was like able to do a lot of like stuff with like the lights in the background, which I always love whenever you can like incorporate a lot of the movements happening around, which personally I always love whenever that kind of stuff you're able to do that kind of stuff and like incorporate it back into like having one solid photo.
No, that's really cool. That's a good, like, interesting shoot to have like experienced recently.
Yeah.
You know, some other stuff that I saw that you've been up to, I guess we'll kind of just go in order here, like stuff that I've been picking up on. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you have a TikTok, like you decided to plug that. Do you have any plans for that,
Yeah.
or where is that going to go for you?
I am trying to like start making short form content. Like I'm trying to see like how to start integrating like the stuff that I do at like photo shoots and like maybe if I do shows and stuff like that into like maybe reels and TikToks and like start showing my personality a bit more other than like photos. Like I'm seeing how that goes. It's just right now it's private because of the fact that I haven't really done much with it, mostly because of the fact that like I guess like I feel like whenever you it's a little bit easier whenever you're just posting photos because of the fact that like and just being able to model because of the fact that I've just been doing that for so long or just like sing down for like a podcast because of the fact that you're just able to like talk and let out a stream of consciousness, whereas like I feel like just for TikTok it's like it's a whole different like Goliath over there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just we kind of live in a world now, not to sound like Unk or anything like that, where like the algorithm kind of dictates like who grows and who doesn't. It's not so much about like, oh, like let me just follow all these people and they'll follow me back and blah 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 blah. Like you just got to get lucky, basically, right? So it's cool that you have endeavors for, you know, that like short form content. One that I want to bring up, and I'm gonna be sure to toss this up on the screen for the video part of this. You have a skit on your Instagram, your modeling Instagram, where you're in a hospital giving birth to a burger. And I know Jabel, a local creative, is a part of that too. Can you kind of explain what's going on there?
Yes. So, my friend Jasmine Powers, she was looking for a model for her advertisement because of the fact that she was hired by this local burger spot called Burger. That's literally their name. They're just called Burger.
Nice and millennial. I like it. All right.
Yes. And so they were just looking for a female and male model, and they chose me out of the people that applied. And so they were like, hey, can you show up on this Saturday to be the mother in this burger commercial? And I was like, mother? Okay, sure.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I don't know what this has to do with the burger commercial, but we'll go with it.
So who came up with the idea for that?
Huh?
Who came up with the idea for the skit?
It was Jasmine.
Okay. And yeah, very interesting idea. Keep going.
Yeah, and so we showed up and we went through the script and everything, and the owner explained like his image. He was like, yeah, I don't want it to be like an El Paso car commercial, apparently. It was his exact words.
I could definitely see the vibe that he's talking about there, for sure.
Yeah, he was like, I want people to like remember it. And it was like, you know what? Yeah, people do remember this.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You're
Because
giving birth to a burger, of all things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end, my supposed husband finds out that the burger does not look like him.
Yeah, and then he like runs out or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
It was definitely a sight to behold. I know the various obvious answers that like you're like reading from a script and all that, but I kind of want to dig a little deeper here. What is the difference between, you know, doing a commercial like that, short form content, or posing for a photo? Because I imagine like, you know, when we're in the studio, you have the mirror behind you, you have takes in between, you can kind of like check how you know how you look. like your facial expressions, your body, and all that. Is there a different type of, I guess, quote unquote, locking in that comes with not being able to take that break, just having the camera constantly recording you?
I mean, like, in the sense of doing, yeah, like, in that case, like, you're reading off a script, but, like, also same time, like, the emotions are also different, because the fact that it depends on, like, the shoot that we're doing as well. Like, our most recent one, I feel like had, like, a bit more of a grungy edge to it, like, the entire time, which I was personally very much digging. Like, I was looking at the photos, I was like, damn, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this came out, it came together pretty nicely. This is
Right.
pretty cool. Yeah. But, like, it also depends on, like, the emotions that you're bringing out as well. Personally, for that skit, for a lot of it, like, that I had to bring forward was, like, a lot more, like, happiness, joy, like, a lot more, like, making sure that I was, like, so happy that I was, holding this burger that I had just brought into this world.
Right.
Yeah, when it was, like, in our most recent shoot, it was more, like, a bit more intensity, a bit more, bringing a bit more sultry vibes, a bit more, like, grungy rock star-esque. It also depends on, like, what vibes you're trying to give, and also whenever you are doing something like that in, say, a skit form for, like, that type of short form content, like, you do multiple cuts of just, like, the same cut. Whereas whenever you're doing, like, something like a photo shoot, you are just, like, constantly doing different poses and hoping that at least one of them's good. Understood, if you're a more seasoned model like I am, you at least know that, like, a good 10-20 will be, like, pretty alright, and you and I together come together and make a pretty, like, solid, like, photo shoot where, like, most of the time I'm looking at the photos and I'm like, damn, I'm having a hard time picking out which ones are I want to, like, bend over to edit, because a lot of these are pretty good. I have
Thank
to
you.
just of course, like,
It's nice knowing I still got it after 5 years, truly, you know?
I mean, yeah, like, you've definitely still got it.
But going back to the whole, like, burger skit, is that your first time doing a commercial like that, or have there been more that you're gonna do in the future, or some that you have in the past? How was it?
I mean, that definitely was the first that, like, I've done in that capacity. Like, I definitely want to do more. It's just the fact that it hasn't really come up. Well, actually, one came up, but they asked me to show up, like, an hour into them shooting, and it was like, sir, I don't know what you want me to do.
Right, a little chaotic, if you will.
Yeah, I guess your main model did not show up and you just needed someone to show up. But this is maybe next time plan better.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, if you're gonna be the man with the plan, you gotta have the plan, man, you know?
Yeah.
So, and last point I want to bring up for this little commercial, like, was it ever featured on anything? Was it just meant to be like an Instagram/TikTok thing? What was the after?
So it was on Instagram. It did end up being reposted on FitFam, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really? Okay, you made it. Nice.
Yeah, which was it was a little bit of a shock to me, because I remember just being tagged by FitFam, and I was like, what the hell?
Right.
What's going on here?
Definitely
What did I do?
scary if getting tagged by FitFam. You never know if it's gonna be like a good thing or like your life is over, you know?
I mean, yeah, no. Half the time, like, whenever, like, I see something on FitFam, I'm just like, okay, who did what now?
Absolutely. Wow, no, that's awesome that at least
Yeah.
you made it on there. Like that must have been a big boost for you. Have there ever been any times in your modeling career, like let's say you post a certain photo shoot, what are the ones that you've noticed you've gained the most likes on, the most followers? Like what has brought you the biggest boost to your page personally?
Unfortunately, it's like the most sexy one.
Right, okay. I mean, I could have just answered that myself, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's like, of course it's Gooners.
Gooners. All right, nice. I mean, hey, we gotta love them, man. They keep us afloat.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no shame, by the way. Keeping everyone afloat. Keep it up, Gooners. Thank you. Right.
Yeah, no, it's like no shame. Thank you for keeping us afloat. But no shame. It's just more or less it's one of those things where it's like, I would like sometimes to be a little bit more clothed.
Yeah, for
not...
sure. Like you don't want to lock yourself into just being like a sexy model. You know what I mean? I feel like even if you don't lock yourself to being that, if you ever lock yourself to being a specific type of model, it definitely gets draining after a while, I would assume, you know? I mean, look at me, that's why I'm doing the podcast now, because that's like, I mean, I do photos, I edit them, but I don't know, I just kind of want like the next step. But I know you also have a podcast, at least tagged on your bio. I believe it's called Coordinate Chaos, right?
Yes, Coordinated Chaos,
Right,
yes.
go into that, man. Tell me all about that.
So I had been kind of debating about creating a podcast for a while, and so I was like, who? And I did not know if I could do it by myself, because the fact that if you're doing it by yourself, you have to be like very topic specific, and I found that very quickly.
Right.
It's like, and I am one of those people that's very bad at staying on topic, unfortunately.
I would have never guessed that in a million years. I mean, I think you're doing pretty good, you know?
I mean, if I'm like talking to someone back and forth, I'm usually good about it. But at the same time, if I am like just by myself, the ADHD does get a little bit too unfocused.
So,
unless I have like some form of like teleprompter just being like hello. You need to be like following like this to a T.
Yeah, I can only imagine. In your case though, are you running it by yourself or are you with someone else doing this?
No, I have a co-host. His name is Andrew Preciado. He's actually my best friend. We actually met at my old job. He used to be my manager, in which half the time I would like look at him and just be like, how is it that you're the manager and yet I do most of your work? And he's like,
how?
No, he openly admits this. He openly admits that he became a manager because of the fact that the managers do less work. And I was like, I fucking hate you.
Well, there you go. Secret exposed right there.
Yes.
So, how did the name come about? Like, what have you talked about so far? Because I know you have a few videos up on the account.
So it's kind of like okay, so the name came about mostly because of the fact that like we are both a bit of we both come from like a bit of chaotic backgrounds, and we both live in like a bit of chaos ourselves, so we both like have this like chaotic energy that comes together. So it's almost like it works if you're ever like around us, where it's like it's a very funny energy, so it's like it's supposed to be a very fun, upbeat energy whenever it comes. But it's very much like topic focus. So every single week, like we have a new like topics that we're like focusing on that week. Because the fact that he has ADD, I have ADHD, so like one thing that does happen, even though I cannot focus, is you hyper-focus on at least one topic a week, and that's something that does happen to me quite often.
Well, there you go. It's nice that you guys have a plan at least, you know?
Yeah, and so we just have a place where we will rant at each other for, like, the first, like, I've it used to be like half an hour. We extended it to like an hour 20,
Oh wow,
just because
big
of
jump.
yeah. Um, I we did it for like an hour 20 for like the cuts and everything, so like it gets whittled down to like an hour 5
Mm-hmm.
because of like the editing and stuff like that. So there's that.
Well, yeah, it's cool that you're like
Because
branching
of
out to those like different creative endeavors for sure.
yeah, yeah, no, it makes it, and so there's that, and it makes it also really easy to like have a variety show as well, so that we can have like different creative endeavors. Since he is also just a wild card in general because he's a music major that is the type and has openly admit that if he could, he would just have a one-man band suit
Okay.
and just like play that around as much as possible.
Well, that's awesome. Closing out the show here, one last post that I want to bring up is, you brought up again, everything is full circle here. It comes back around. You mentioned how you haven't done too many, like, like fancy shoots, and mostly just been like more casual, bikini modeling, stuff like that. But one post that did stand out because it was pretty, I would say fancy. I'm going to toss that word around here. It was a product shoot that you did with Bombay Come Stay, I believe is how you pronounce the name. It was with the shades.
Yeah.
What was that all about? Like, how were you approached by that? Was it like a sponsorship deal? Where was it at? Tell me the story on that one.
Okay, so I'm actually a model for Eliana Vilipando. So I'm going to be in the going to be modeling for her in this upcoming June 1st in the Regatta Bazaar Spring Trends Fashion Week,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically under her and in the Bomb Blades. And for the I'm trying to remember promotional shoot for that. They had a collaboration shoot between her brand and Bomb Blades. So I was wearing Iliada's brand and Bomb Blades in that photo.
So like a 2-in-1.
So that's how, yeah, so it was essentially 2-in-1 altogether.
Wow, that's very interesting.
And yeah, no, but it wasn't just me, like, me and like 4 other models were like doing a collaboration between us and Bomb Blades for that shoot, essentially.
So this ties back to it being part of an agency, right? You mentioned the agency Regaza, but you mentioned that you're not a part of them, you're part of someone else as their model. What's the process on that? I've never heard of that before.
So technically I'm not part of an agency, but at the same time, like, Iliana was searching for like for models for her designs.
Mm-hmm.
So the process behind that was the fact that she was trying to look for models to just like get into like model her stuff, and the process behind that is if you could like walk and if you could like fit the measurements that she was looking for. Also, same time, if you could like follow through with in our cases, she had sponsorships behind it. So one of the posts I actually have up is for Beauty by Angie. One of those, the reason I have that post up is because of the fact that that's actually a sponsorship that was related to Iliana, which did help cover the designer costs so that she can like create all the outfits with like the fabric and stuff like that by hand, because Iliana's like creating all of that like herself.
Oh wow, so sounds like she's a pretty important person, I would say, in the modeling scene, if she's able to like have that pull.
Yeah, no, she's pretty like, from what I understand, Iliana's like been like very helpful to like the El Paso community and especially the modeling community. She's been like trying to like help out like where she can.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a pretty big like figure in that kind of space. Um, she did partner up with Ragaza specifically because of the fact that the part of modeling that I'm doing is her shapewear line, and not everyone was agreeing with the image that she had behind it because of the fact that it's a bit more racy.
Yeah.
And so not everyone always agrees with having that on their runway.
Right, for sure, for
but
sure.
since but since the runway is going to be in more of like a lounge club style, it should be fine.
You know what? I'm gonna ask a corny one. I'm gonna ask one last corny
All right.
question here. What?
All right.
It sounds like a fucking preschool teacher here. But what do you see yourself doing 1 year from now, modeling wise? Like, where do you see yourself future? Are you still gonna like keep up with this? Are you gonna strive for something different? What's the plan moving forward?
I think I see myself like in 1 year from now, like definitely expanding. I have been definitely looking into maybe moving out of the freelance space, and maybe like if I do get signed, going to sign to like an agency outside of El Paso, because the fact that the agencies in El Paso can sometimes be a little bit uh not that helpful, but probably something that like a true commercial modeling agency that uh will have me like booked and busy,
Right.
because uh they are a lot more helpful to like get like get you paid, get you on your feet, and get you on the ground running.
Yeah.
And also same time, if you do work with them, they do help expand you a lot more, which
Hmm.
I do think would be a really good plan of action for me. I think I'm finally ready to stop being stubborn about that.
Right. Well, that's good that you kind of want to challenge yourself in that regard. And just kind of you're echoing what I hear a lot about this city is that while El Paso is growing, it still sounds like even in the most niche communities, the opportunity to grow is not here in El Paso for that. Because you're talking about agencies outside of El Paso trying different things. It's an interesting note to keep in mind.
I mean, I think the thing is about El Paso is like it's growing, but at the same time, like it's very much one of those cities that you have to pay it forward instead of someone paying you. And the thing is, at the same time, you, if you're just at the beginning, you don't mind it as much, but at some point, it's not as sustainable.
Hmm.
And when you realize that you can't sustain that forever, and you have enough backing that you understand that you can't do that forever, you start like trying to look where you can sustain.
Yeah, you know, definitely see that. Again, it's just one thing that I hope changes later on in the future. I do love this city. Like, yes, I get it. I'm not to be exposing myself as being a faker or whatever, but I would want to move out of El Paso, but I do want to leave this place in like a better spot than it is right now, obviously,
Yeah,
you know. Um, but yeah, you know what? Here's hoping that in another year we come back and we're even better than we were last year.
yeah, definitely.
But all right, with that, my name is Desierto Media. My name is Demis. You can find me all over the internet. It's not hard to find one of my many pages. But I was joined here today by Kara. Kara, is there anything you want to plug one last time before we close out here?
Yeah. Once again, my name is Kara Moad. If you want to follow me, my handles on both Instagram and TikTok are at kmoad, and please also follow Desierto and have a great rest of your day.
Hey, well there you go. She said it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Adios.